Good day, coach and classmates. My name is Charlene B. Untong, and I am the little teacher of Study Hub 8. I'll be introducing our video presentation for today. Before we begin, let me introduce my team members. For today's presentation, we will be discussing the learner-centered psychological principle. This topic is important because it focuses on how students think and learn. These principles help students improve their problem-solving skills, self-awareness, and ability to think critically. They also guide teachers in creating better teaching strategies that support active learning and independence. Understanding this principle makes learning more effective and meaningful for students. Before we dive into the main discussion, here are the learning objectives of our presentation. At the end of the unit, the pre-service teacher can A. Discuss the psychological principles of learner-centeredness as a basis for differentiated teaching to suit learners' gender, needs, strengths, interests, and experiences. Identify factors that promote learner-centeredness and motivate learners to work productively and be accountable for their own learning. C. Reflect on how developmental and social factors can influence learning environments to promote fairness, respect, and care. And lastly, relate the RA 10533 and the K-12 framework to the principle of learner-centeredness. So what is learner-centered psychological principles? It focuses on the cognitive, motivational, and social aspects of learning. They emphasize the importance of students' engagement, goal setting, and the role of real-life experiences in education. So one category under this is cognitive and metacognitive factors, which is I will explain further. Cognitive factors refer to how students think, understand, and remember information. So, for example, a student using memory techniques to study is applying cognitive strategies. So, while metacognitive factors, it involves understanding one's own learning process. When a student realizes that they learn better by summarizing lessons instead of just rereading them, so they are using metacognition. So metacognition helps students become independent learners because they analyze their own learning and adjust their strategies to improve. So the illustration showing cognitive and metacognitive processes. So on the left, a student is actively studying with books, taking notes, and solving problems, representing the cognitive learning. On the right side, the same student is reflecting on their study habits, evaluating their learning process, and adjusting their strategies, that representing the metacognition. So under this category, there are 6 key factors that influence learning. First is nature of the learning process. It involves how students actively engage in learning. Second, goals of the learning process. The importance of setting learning objectives. So third, construction of knowledge. It how students build understanding from experiences. 4. Strategic thinking, the use of problem solving and decision making strategies. So 5. Thinking about thinking. So this is called metacognition. So the ability to reflect on and regulate learning. And last, context of learning, how the environment and real-world experiences impact learning. Now, let's go through each of these factors one by one. Starting with the first is the nature of the learning process. So the nature of learning process, learning happens step by step. It is an active process, not just memorization. So students build on what they already know to understand new concepts. And last, connecting knowledge makes learning easier. The nature of learning means the students do not just memorize facts, they understand new concepts by connecting them to what they already know. So, learning is a gradual process that happens step by step. For example, a child learning how to read does not start with full sentences. They first learn the letters, then words, and finally sentences. Similarly, a student learning how to cook does not immediately prepare a complicated dish. They first learn how to measure ingredients, then chop vegetables, and later cook full meals. So this shows that learning process that builds on itself. Each new lesson becomes easier when it is connected to something familiar. So let's move on the second factors. So the goals of the learning process. So the main goal of learning is not just to memorize facts, but to understand, analyze, and apply knowledge in real lives. So for example, in math, students should not just memorize formulas, they should understand when and how to use them. So in science, they should learn how to ask questions, investigate, and solve problems, not just recall facts from a textbooks. So by encouraging students to think critically and applying what they learn, they become better and solving real world challenges. So now, let's move to the third key factors. So the construction of knowledge. Learning is built from experiences and previous knowledge. So the students create their own understanding by actively engaging with information. So here in the third key factors, so the knowledge is built, it is not simply received. So students do not just absorb information like a sponge. They actively construct their understanding based on their experiences and what they already know. So for example, when a student learns about gravity, they understand it better if they recall dropping objects before. So this connection between past experiences and knowledge makes learning stronger and more meaningful. The illustration shows that in a science class, students are learning about the water cycle instead of just reading about it in the textbook. So they conduct an experiment where they heat water, observe condensation forming on a cold surface, and then see how droplets return to a container. So by doing the experiment, students are actively building their knowledge rather than just memorizing facts. So this hands-on learning helps them understand the concept better because they are experiencing it directly, so making connections between the theory and real life. So the fourth key factor is strategic thinking. Strategic thinking helps students plan and organize their learning. It allows them to solve problems efficiently. Developing strategies improves understanding and retention of information. Strategic thinking helps students learn more effectively by encouraging them to plan and organize their learning process. So, for example, if a student has an exam, they can identify which topics need more focus. So, and use different strategies like flashcards, summarize, and practice questions. Also, they can manage their time efficiently. So, by using strategies, students become more independent and successful in learning. So, number five, thinking about thinking, which is the metacognition. So, metacognition is thinking about your own learning. So, it helps students identify which methods work best for them. So, it allows students to adjust their strategies to improve learning. So again, the metacognition is the ability to think about one's own thinking. It helps students become aware of how they learn best and how they can improve. So, for example, if a student realizes they understand better by watching videos instead of reading long texts, so they can adjust their study method to improve learning. So, this self awareness makes students better and learning independently. So the last factor is context of learning. So learning is affected by the environment and culture. So a positive learning environment motivates students. So teachers, peers, and personal experiences shape how students learn. So the illustration shows that the students learning in different environments such as classroom, home, and online. So the context of learning refers to the environment in which students learn. This includes teachers, classmates, family, and culture. So for example, a student learning in a supportive and encouraging classroom will be more motivated than one who faces constant stress. So similarly, students from different cultures may approach learning differently based on their traditions and experiences. So by understanding the learning context, educators can create a positive and inclusive environment for all students.
Good day everyone, especially to Coach Jude. I'm Neselito A. Prieto from Study Hub 8, number 2. Before we proceed to our new lesson or topic, we have small conclusion about the cognitive and metacognitive factor under in Learning Center in Psychological Principle. Learning Center Psychology Principle emphasize the student learn best when they actively engage in the learning process, set clear goals, and connect new information with prior knowledge. By confusing on cognitive and metacognitive strategies, students develop critical thinking, problem solving, and self-awareness about their learning habits. Additionally, learning becomes more effective when it's meaningful and connected to real-life experience. When students take ownership on their learning, they become more motivated, independent, and capable of adapting to new challenge. Now we proceed to our new lesson, and my topic is all about the motivational and effective factor. Motivational factors play a crucial role in a learner-centered psychological principle. Anatomy, competence, and relatedness are three factors that motivate learners. When learners have a control over their learning process, such as choosing topic, they are more likely to be motivated similar when learners feel competent and capable of achieving their goals. They are more motivated finally when learners feel connected to others, such as a peers or instructors. They are more motivated. Additionally, interest and relevance are also important motivational factors. When learners center interest in the subject matter and see its relevance to their life, they are more likely to be motivated. Effective factors are also essential in learner-centered psychological principle. Active learning feedback, self-assessment, collaboration, and reflection are also effective factors that they promote learning. When learners are actively involved in the learning process, they are more engaged and effective. Regular instructor feedback also guides learning and helps them improve. Self-assessment enable learning to evaluate their own learning and set goals. Collaboration also learning to work with others, share ideas, and learn from each other. Finally, reflection helps learning identify their strengths, weaknesses, and areas of improvement. Intrinsic motivation to learn the learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity. All these contribute to motivation to learn. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated by tasks of optimal novelty and difficulty relevant to a person choose and control the world. Intrinsic means that something is inherent by nature. Intrinsic motivation to learn refer to the desire to learn and engage in academic activity for personal satisfaction, enjoyment, and interest rather than for external reward or pressures. These types of motivation is driven by a genuine curiosity and passion for learning and is characterized by a sense of autonomy, agency, and self-direction. When students are instructive motivation, they are more likely to be engaged, committed to their learning and to persist in face and challenges and obstacles. Last, effects of motivation. Effect of motivation effort on acquisition of conflicts, knowledge and skills required, extended learning effort, and guided practice. Without learners, motivation to learn, the willingness to exert this effort is unlike without coercion. When students exert motivational effort, they experience a range of positive outcomes that enhance their motivation, emotions, and overall learning experience. This leads to increased self-efficiency, improvement, goal setting, and greater persistence. As a student, develop a stronger sense of confidence and competence. Motivational effort fosters positive effective factors such as increased enjoyment, reduced anxiety, and improved self-esteem, which strengthens motivation and maintains a positive emotional state. Furthermore, motivational effort has a cognitive and metacognitive benefits, including deep understanding, improved metacognitive skills, and increased creativity. Ultimately, the long-term consequence of motivation and effort include developing a growth mindset, fostering a love of learning, and improve academic achievement, leading to a lifelong love of learning and strong foundation for future success.
Good day, everyone. So, my name is Casey Lane D. Ostero, member 3 of the Study Hub 8. So, before discussing the third and fourth categories of learning-centered psychological principles or LCPPs, which are the developmental and social factors and the individual differences. So, first, let's briefly recap about Mr. Prieto's presentation on the second category, which is the motivation and affective factors. So, Mr. Prietos discussed how our emotions and motivation significantly influence learning. He highlighted the three key principles, which are the motivational and emotional influences, intrinsic motivation to learn, and the effects of motivation on effort. So, motivational and emotional influences, here our feelings and attitudes directly impact our engagement and success in learning. Positive emotions generally lead to better learning outcomes. The second is intrinsic motivation to learn. So, the inherent drive to learn for the sake of learning itself is incredibly powerful. So, when we're intrinsically motivated, learning is more enjoyable and effective. And lastly is the effects of motivation on effort. So here, our level of motivation directly correlates with the amount of effort we're willing to put into learning. So higher motivation typically results in greater efforts and better results. Now, let's proceed to the third categories of LCPPs. The third category is the developmental and social factors. So, this category examines how developmental and social interactions influence learning. So, this includes two principles, which are the developmental influences on learning and social influences on learning. So, let's first discuss the principles of the developmental and social interaction, which is the developmental influences on learning. Learning is influenced by the learner's developmental stage, including cognitive, social, and emotional development. So, this means that what a child can learn at the age of 5 is different from what they can learn at the age of 15. So, teachers need to be aware of these developmental differences and adjust their teaching methods accordingly. The second principle of development and social interaction is the social influence on learning. So, learning is enhanced through collaboration, interaction with peers, and participation in a supportive learning community. This means that students learn best when they are actively involved in the learning and have opportunities to interact with others. So, like group projects, peer tutoring, and classroom discussion are all examples of ways to promote social interaction in the classroom. Let's proceed to the fourth category of the learner-centered psychological principles is the individual differences. So, this category recognizes that every learner is unique and has different strengths, weaknesses, learning styles, and preferences. The principle under here is the individual differences in learning. Individual differences in learning, effective instruction takes into account individual differences and provides differentiate learning experiences. So, this means that teachers need to be flexible in their teaching methods and provide a variety of learning opportunities to meet the needs of all the students. For example, some students may learn best by listening to lectures, while others may prefer hand-on activities. Teacher should use a variety of teaching methods to ensure that all students have the opportunity to learn. So, in conclusion, understanding the developmental and social factors and individual differences within the learner-centered psychological principles is crucial for creating effective and engaging learning environments. By acknowledging the diverse developmental stages of our students, fostering collaboration learning, and adapts our teaching methods to individual learning styles and preferences. So, we can empower each student to reach their full potential. Let's commit to incorporating these principles into our practice to create classroom where every student thrives. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, especially to you Coach Jude. So before I proceed to my topic, I'll give some recap about Cassie's Astera's topic. So, she explored key aspects of learner-centered psychological principles. Developmental and social factors emphasizes the importance of age-appropriate instructions and collaborative learning. Individual differences highlight the need for differentiated instruction to cater to diverse learning styles and needs. Successful teaching integrates these elements for optimal students' learning. Diversity. This focuses on the relationship between learning and the diverse backgrounds, experiences, and abilities of learners. It emphasizes the importance of inclusive teaching practices that recognize and value the unique contributions of all students, regardless of their race, ethnicity, gender, or socio-economic status. Effective instructions in diverse setting requires teachers to adapt their methods to meet the needs of all learners. This emphasizes the importance of culturally responsive teaching. Culturally responsive teaching recognizes the diverse cultural backgrounds and experiences of students and integrates this into the curriculum and teaching methods. It aims to create a classroom environment where all students feel valued, respected, and empowered to learn. So, second is standards and assessment. Standards define the expected levels of knowledge and skills students should achieve in a particular subject or grade level. Assessments are methods used to measure student learning and progress toward meeting these standards. They provide feedback to both students and teachers, informal instructional decision, and helping to ensure that all students are learning effectively. Assessment methods vary widely and may include tests, projects, presentations, and observations. Standards and assessment are interconnected and should be aligned. Well-designed assessment should accurately measure student progress toward established standards. The assessment method should be diverse and appropriate for the range of learners and learning styles present in the classroom. Next is legal and policy frameworks and learner-centered teaching. This area examines the legal and policy context that shape education, particularly as they relate to learner-centered teaching. Learner-centered teaching is an approach that focuses on the individual needs and learning styles of students, prioritizing active learning, collaboration, and student-led inquiry. Legal frameworks and policies often influence and curriculum design, teaching practices, and assessment methods, ensuring equity and access for all students. These areas consider the ethical implications of teaching practices. Learner-centered teaching, while beneficial, must also adhere to legal and ethical guidelines. This includes ensuring fairness, equity, and respect for all students, while also maintaining appropriate professional boundaries and standards. Next is RA 10533, Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. It Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013 is a Philippine law that mandates the implementation of the K-12 Basic Education Program. This program adds 2 years to the basic education cycle, extending it from 10 years to 12 years. This goal is to enhance quality of education and better prepare students for higher education, employment, and lifelong learning. RA 10533 is to improve the quality of the Philippine workforce by providing a more comprehensive and globally competitive education. Additional to 2 years of secondary education are intended to equip students with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed in a higher education and the job market. Last is K-12 framework. The K-12 framework is the curriculum structure for the 12-year basic education program in the Philippines. It outlines the learning competencies, subject matter, and assessment standard for each grade level, from kindergarten to grade 12. It aims to provide a comprehensive and globally competitive education system for Filipino students. K-12 framework is designed to be a spiral curriculum. This means that concepts are introduced at an early stage and revisited and expanded upon in subsequent grades. This approach allows for a deeper understanding of the subject matter over time, building upon prior knowledge and skills. So, in overall conclusion, it outlined a curricular or source plan focusing on learner-centered psychological principles. The topics covers various influencing learning, categorized as cognitive and metacognitive, motivational and affective development, and social. and individual differences. The final section addresses legal and policy frameworks relevant to learner-centered teaching. The intended learning column suggests that the course aims to equip teachers with the ability to discuss learner-centered approaches, identify factors affecting learner-centeredness and productivity. It reflects on how various factors influence learnings and relate the framework to learner-centeredness. In short, the curriculum is designed to foster a deep understanding of the psychological principle underlying effective teaching in a learner-centered environment.